you. Fellow Toastmasters, I'm here to give a technical presentation about an MPC. Now, when you think of technical presentations, you probably don't think of me. However, there are technical aspects to what we do in recruiting that I thought made for a nice speech as a technical briefing. So I want you to think of yourselves as potential most placeable candidates. Now what that MPC stands for, which I had never heard of, and maybe most of you hadn't until that introduction, is a big deal in our industry. Because most placeable candidates are people you can place, and typically they generate a fee. But what is a most placeable candidate? What does that mean? Well, there are 5 ingredients I've decided that I will share with you today that are important to being a most placeable candidate. The first one is to have a stable work history. Now by stable, I would refer to at least 5 years in the last employment, or at least 5 years in the last 7 if you happen to have taken a job you don't like, but you were in a position for several years before you made that move. You could still be a most placeable candidate. Just the other day, the recruiter Heather and I were talking about somebody, a regional sales manager, with a lot of the experiences we wanted, accomplishments and so on, but he had changed jobs about every year and a half. And you just can't place somebody who hops that often, right? So if you have been in a circumstance where you've changed jobs several times, that's okay. My suggestion would be that if you're wanting to make a change now, that you be patient with what you have, or recognize that there are more things you're going to need to do to get placed if you want to make another change. Stable work history is very critical to somebody being an MPC. Perhaps the biggest piece to identifying an MPC person is somebody who has a why. Now, if you are a person who's doing reasonably well in your work life, but you really want to make a change, then you become somebody who a recruiter like me would want to talk to, because you have a why. You have a driving reason. Now, Joe, for example, that I'm working with right now, is working down in the Dayton, Cincinnati area. And he and his wife are both from the Columbus area. He worked in Columbus for a number of years before he took this job a few years ago down near Cincinnati. And he's decided he wants to get back. Problem is that he's making a lot of money, and about $120,000. And there are not a lot of $120,000 jobs out there, and he doesn't have the time to look. So he contacted me, and actually we had a little bit of history together from a previous employer, and he said, "You're the guy to help me find something in Columbus." Okay, so Joe had a why, okay, and he had a real clear idea of where he wanted to work. Okay, I talk with folks frequently about opportunities I hear about in Texas and Colorado, and Georgia, Carolinas, Florida. There's a lot of employment opportunities down there. But if you are living in northeastern Ohio and you have a strong family tie here, which a lot of us do, you're not interested in Florida or Colorado or someplace out of this area. So if you've defined this area as where you want to work, or if you've defined, like Joe, a city like Columbus, that's going to be very helpful to a guy like me in being able to help you find that position. The third piece to what for me would be a most placeable candidate ingredient is having a sense of what companies or what industries you would like to work. So if you have, I'll take Joe's situation as a good example. He's a controller, okay, and he's worked with real estate development companies, he's worked with professional service firms, and that's it. Okay. So if I'm going to place him, I've got to call professional service firms, either law firms or CPA firms or engineering firms or architectural firms, and also real estate development companies. Okay, I can't call a manufacturer or a retail business and try to get Joe a job as their controller. Okay, so the industry kind of drives a lot of where you can place most placeable candidates. I have a guy named Ken who's really big on sustainable energy, and I think it's one of those areas where there's a lot of growth. Okay, that'll get me to another point here in a second, but Ken is in a job that he's not happy. He's good at what he does. He sells, he hits his targets, he far exceeds his targets actually, but he doesn't trust the ownership. And they hired him under one pretense, and now things have changed since he got there, and he's very angry about that. All right. So I had tried to recruit him for another position. A client of mine didn't think he was the right fit, but he impressed me, okay, as somebody who I think I could place. And so Ken produced a list, and I'm not exaggerating here, of 900 electrical energy related companies on the eastern seaboard